Chapter 7. 17 Years of the Same Cycle. 17 years. That's almost 2 decades of loving a man who didn't know how to love me back the way I needed. 17 years of breaking up and making up. Of doors that never closed all the way, and wounds that never had time to heal before being torn open again. We were caught in a loop. Predictable. Painful. Exhausting. He would mess up. I would cry. He would apologize. I would forgive. He would change. Briefly. Just long enough for hope to slip back in. And then it would happen again. Always. Without fail. And every time I told myself it was the last. I made promises to myself in the middle of the night, in tear-soaked pillows, in the silence of disappointment. This is it. I won't go back. But morning would come. He'd say the right things. Or worse, he'd say nothing at all, and I'd reach out first. Because that's the part I hate admitting. Sometimes I was the one who went back willingly. Not because things were better, but because being in a broken relationship felt less scary than facing my life without it. I was addicted to the cycle. To the hope that maybe this time he'd finally get it. That maybe this time I wouldn't have to hurt to be loved. That if I could just be more patient, more forgiving, more understanding, he'd finally see me. But love doesn't work like that. Love isn't supposed to feel like war. It's not supposed to leave you anxious, insecure, and constantly second-guessing your worth. But for 17 years, I lived in that space. I normalized chaos. I called dysfunction commitment. I labeled my trauma responses as loyalty. We played the same roles over and over. He'd slip, I'd catch him. He'd lie, I'd smooth it over. He'd disappear emotionally, I'd carry us both. And when it all fell apart, I was the one sweeping up the pieces. Again. There were times I thought we were finally getting it right. He'd show up. He'd try. And I'd exhale just enough to believe the nightmare was over. But the peace never lasted. Because he wasn't changing. I was just getting better at surviving the storm. 17 years of loving someone who never had the capacity to love me the way I needed. 17 years of waiting on a version of him that only showed up long enough to keep me hopeful. But the hardest part wasn't losing him. It was losing myself in the process, piece by piece, year by year, until I couldn't even remember what it felt like to love me without needing him to validate it. That's the danger of a cycle. It doesn't stop until you stop spinning. And I was dizzy for far too long.